Hong Kong ready to welcome Lunar New Year mainland tourists. Iran's exiled prince calls for international intervention to oust present regime. And Russia denies European countries' accusations that Moscow used star frog poison to kill Alexei Navalny. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The mainland's Lunar New Year Golden Week holidays kicked off today. This as Hong Kong immigration authorities reported over 580,000 people traveled across the border as of 4 p.m. today, among which 270,000 were Hong Kongers heading to the north and more than 110,000 being mainland tourists visiting the city.
Scenes of West Kowloon Station this morning remained similar to those of yesterday, with scores of mainland tourists pouring into the city, many of them being large families. This mainland visitor says she wanted to bring her children to see a metropolitan area like Hong Kong with their very own eyes, noting that it is home to attractive landmarks such as Disneyland and Ocean Park. While this woman said Hong Kong has a special place in her heart since she grew up watching TVB dramas, adding that she really wanted to try boarding the local trams. On Canton Road in Tsim Sha Tsui, the traditionally popular tourist area already saw long queues by noon, with some eager buyers looking to purchase precious metals. This Dongguan tourist said he's aiming to buy some gold jewelry to please his wife. While this woman from Zhejiang said she heard discounts were offered in nearby shops and hopes to find some newer jewelry designs here. Meanwhile, representatives from the hotel sector noted around 90% of hotel rooms have been booked for the New Year holiday period, with prices also seeing an increase of 5 to 8%. Speaking about the boost in tourism numbers, Miramar Group Chief Operations Officer Alan Chan said the positive situation is largely the result of the Golden Week holidays having been extended to 9 days. He added that the city will organize various large-scale activities to celebrate the New Year in hopes of enticing visitors to stay for an extra few days.
Financial Secretary Paul Chan said more than 7 million tourists visited Hong Kong since January. Most and I reports.
In
a video, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said a few Lunar New Year greetings, wishing residents a healthy and prosperous year ahead. Chan said Hong Kong's economy had been going forward in a stable pace in the past year. For the upcoming year, he said the government aims to improve the city's traditional industries as well as developing new ones. On his weekly blog, Chan said he had visited Victoria Park's flower market on Saturday, spending about $3,800 on festive items, including flowers and food. The financial chief said that the number of tourists continued to rise since the start of the year, reaching 7.23 million as of Friday, a 9.6% increase compared to the same period last year. Chan also predicted about 1.43 million mainland visitors would arrive in Hong Kong over the Lunar New Year holiday. A food and beverage lawmaker said the sector holds a more optimistic prospect for the new year after seeing an improved performance in business. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's airport received 5.51 million passengers and handled 34,445 flight movements in January, representing a year-on-year increase of 4.5% and 2.4% respectively. As for the Lunar New Year holiday, the airport authority said the daily passenger numbers is expected to reach 210,000 on peak days. Memos 9, TVB News.
Secretary for Transport and Logistics Mabel Chan said today's quota for mainland vehicles entering the city under the southbound travel for Guangdong vehicles scheme nearly reached its limit. She hopes authorities could look into expanding the quota in the near future. This as many mainland tourists have chosen Hong Kong as their Lunar New Year holiday destination, with the city reporting the entry of around 100 mainland vehicles today. Some 500 southbound cars are also expected to arrive within the next few days. As of now, 7,000 mainland vehicles have registered for the scheme at the automatic registration system since its implementation. Chan noted that authorities will continue to hold discussions with their Guangdong counterparts regarding the expansion of the scheme. Iran is ready to consider compromises to reach a nuclear deal with the United States if Washington is willing to discuss lifting sanctions. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takhtravanchi told the BBC. Iran has said it is prepared to discuss curbs on its nuclear program in return for the lifting of sanctions, but has repeatedly ruled out linking the issue to its ballistic missiles and other conventional weapons. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will meet with Iranian officials on Tuesday. Nasbi Karim with more.
A day after U.S. President Donald Trump advocated for regime change in Iran, the new generation of revolutionaries were out in force. In Munich, Germany, Iranian supporters of Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, raised a giant flag of pre-Islamic revolution Iran.
Well, we came here because the people in Iran are fighting for freedom, and there were like huge protests.
An Israeli flag is seen in the background, with Israel's intelligence agency Mossad admitting that they were working on the ground in Iran during the recent protests. These demonstrations are coinciding with the Munich Security Conference, in which top defense officials from most of the major countries have gathered to discuss various issues. Iranians living in Bucharest, Romania, protest outside the Iranian embassy, calling for regime change, saying the government is executing hundreds of young people every week. Iran's atomic chief said on Monday that Tehran could agree to dilute its most highly enriched uranium in exchange for all financial sanctions to be lifted. However, Iran is unwilling to accept zero uranium enrichment, which had been a key impediment to reaching a deal last year. The U.S. views enrichment inside Iran as a pathway to nuclear weapons, which Iran denies seeking. During his first term in office, Trump pulled the U.S. out of a 2015 Iran nuclear agreement, which eased sanctions on Iran in exchange for Tehran limiting its nuclear program to prevent it from building an atomic weapon. Trump is sending more military vessels to the region, threatening to launch strikes against Iran if talks fail. Pahlavi, whose father's infamous Savak security force was said to have tortured and executed political opponents, urged Trump to destroy the regime of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
The importance of a strike to neutralize the regime forces of repression is the element that could get people back into the streets to continue their struggle. That's the element that pretty much is at stake right now, which is why Iranians in Iran and abroad are awaiting impatiently that this happens faster and sooner rather than delaying it.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
5 European allies have blamed Russia for killing late Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny by using toxin from poison dart frogs while he was held in an Arctic penal colony 2 years ago. Moscow has rejected this claim, calling it propaganda. Tracy Furness has more.
Speaking to media in Munich, where the Munich Security Conference is taking place, German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul said it was clear that Russian authorities had the possibility, the motive and the means to administer the poison to Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Wadephul added, there are states like the United Kingdom, Sweden, the Netherlands, France and Germany that make such things public, who won't let it be swept under the rug. The 5 European courtiers said Saturday that Navalny was poisoned by the Kremlin with a rare and lethal toxin, epibetadine, found in the skin of poison dart frogs.
Only the Russian government had the means, the motive and the opportunity to use that toxin against Alexei Navalny in prison. And that is why we are here today, to shine a spotlight on the Kremlin's barbaric attempt to silence Alexei Navalny's voice.
Navalny's widow, Yulia Navalnaya, said last year that 2 independent labs had found that her husband was poisoned shortly before he died.
Now, it's not just words, it's scientific proof that my husband, Alexei Navalny, was poisoned and killed by Russian government and by Vladimir Putin in Russian prison.
Navalny died in an Arctic penal colony in February 2024. He was serving a 19-year sentence that he believed to be politically motivated after he crusaded against official corruption and staged massive anti-Kremlin protests as Russian President Vladimir Putin's fiercest foe. Russian authorities said that the politician became ill after a walk and died from natural causes. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio during the Munich Security Conference and thanked its international allies for their support in the war against Russia. Previous U.S.-led efforts to find consensus on ending the war have failed to resolve difficult issues, such as the future of Ukraine's Donbass industrial heartland that is largely occupied by Russian forces. Nasvi Karim with details.
Handshakes and smiles as Rubio and Zelensky meet on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. A year ago, sitting in the White House, Zelensky was accused by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance of being ungrateful. While in Munich, the Ukrainian leader has been effusive in his thanks to the U.S. and Europe for their support in supplying weapons to defend Ukraine against Russian attacks. Zelensky also met with some U.S. senators and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina brought up the fact that Russian President Vladimir Putin is unlikely to ever give up the eastern Donbass territory, much of which his forces have captured. One of Zelensky's main concerns is guarantees for Ukraine's security from a repeat Russian attack once a peace treaty is in place.
I don't think we're going to get a deal anytime soon. I think Putin is not ready to negotiate seriously. I think we made progress, but he believes he can take the Donbass over the range of time, and he's not going to stop until the pressure is more, not less.
At the conference, top European leaders discussed Washington's role in the Ukraine-Russia peace talks. Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski insists that Europe deserves a seat at the table. His argument is that the U.S. under President Trump is no longer paying for weapons to support Ukraine, but selling them to Europe.
We are now paying for this war. The American outlay for the war for last year was close to zero. We are buying American weapons to be delivered to Ukraine. There is no package in the US Congress, and that there isn't even the prospect of a package. If we are paying, if this is affecting our security, not just Ukraine's, then we deserve the seat at the table because the outcome of this war will affect us.
Nazri Karim, TVB News.
And still ahead, Marco Rubio says China and U.S. owe it to the world to manage relationships well. Police chief says education has significantly helped to reduce the number of fraud cases. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the expected meeting between the U.S. and Chinese leaders would take place in April this year when U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to visit China to meet with President Xi Jinping.
The two largest economies in the world, two of the big powers on the planet, we have an obligation to communicate with them and talk. Because we're two large countries with huge global interests, our national interests will often not align. Their national interests and ours will not align, and we owe it to the world to try to manage those as best we can, obviously avoiding conflict, both economic and worse.
Rubio went on to say there are some fundamental challenges between the U.S. and China, and between the West and China, adding the challenges will continue for the foreseeable future, and the U.S. and China must do everything possible to avoid unnecessary friction. In Beijing, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs previously stated that head of state diplomacy plays an irreplaceable strategic guiding role in China-U.S. relations. It was also pointed out that the essence of China-U.S. economic and trade relations is mutual benefit and win-win, and both sides should implement the important consensus reached by the two heads of state to inject more certainty and stability into China-U.S. economic and trade cooperation and the world economy. Foreign Minister Wang Yi has said that China and Europe are partners, not opponents, and certainly not systemic rivals. The Chinese foreign minister was speaking at the Munich Security Conference Saturday. Wang made the remarks in response to questions on China-EU relations after delivering a speech at the China in the World session at the conference. Wang added that half a century of engagement and daily trade exceeding $2 billion clearly shows the depth of China-Europe relations. He acknowledged differences in social systems, values, and development paths, but he stressed that the differences are not a reason to be adversaries and divergences are not a basis for confrontation. Besides being foreign minister, Wang is also a member of the political bureau of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee. The observatory recorded a maximum temperature of 26.9 degrees Celsius on Sunday afternoon, the highest on record for the 28th day of the 12th lunar month. The weather was fine in the city during the day, some passers-by dressed in short-sleeved or thin layers of clothing. The observatory says the weather will remain warm on Monday, with the highest temperature being around 27 degrees in the urban areas, and a couple of degrees higher in the new territories. Police Commissioner Joe Chow says both crime cases and scams have seen declines last year. Speaking with TVB News, Chow also pins hope on the Interpol General Assembly, which will be hosted in Hong Kong late this year for the first time, and stepping up international collaboration to further combat cross-border crimes. Jacqueline spoke with the police chief.
Around 89,100 crime cases were reported in 2025, marking a drop of 5.9% year-on-year. Scam cases too decreased nearly 3%, and the amount of scam-related losses plunged more than 11%.
Last year, Hong Kong has been seeing a dip in crime figures for the first time. We know that probably contributed by the dip in scam cases. But we also see that Cambodia has released its latest figure about how it has cracked down on 200 transnational scam farms, with the Myanmar-based cocaine scam farms as well. Do you think it's more because of the international crackdown on scam cases, or more because of local efforts?
We have to look at the composition of the scams. So we are talking about investment scams and some telephone scams. I think those were related to those scam farms that you have just mentioned. But for the rest, most of them, around 30%, is talking about the online shopping fraud. So it's nothing to do with those. But for the drop overall, I would say our education work and also publicity over the last few years, that it helped a lot. It seriously helped a lot.
Hong Kong is going to host the Interpol General Assembly late this year. We know the situation these days, it might have been overshadowed by the international spotlight on Jimmy Lai's case and probably some geopolitical tensions. What would the police be working on to balance these factors? They would specifically say that all political related or religious related issues that we have to ignore it. Because we are talking about global cooperation in policing. We are trying to make sure that we can speak out the good story of China, Hong Kong, and as well as the Hong Kong police.
Chow anticipates that the assembly will likely address and foster international collaboration on tech and cross-border issues, including money laundering. Locally, authorities are aiming to install 60,000 surveillance cameras across the city by 2028. They're mulling to include cameras installed at other government departments or shopping arcades, which volunteer to do so, especially those located at strategic locations or near criminal black spots.
Mounting some new cameras, it needs time, it needs resources, etc. So why not that we can make good use of those?
Jacqueline, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.